She prayed every single day. She fasted. She attended church every Sunday without fail. She gave her tithes even when she barely had enough to eat. And yet, she was broke, struggling, watching life pass her by. Her name was Tolu, and for years she believed one thing with her whole heart, that God did not want his children to be rich. But was she right? Or was there something she was missing that nobody ever told her? Tolu grew up in a church where money was spoken about with suspicion. She heard it every
Brothers and
week.
sisters, we must understand that the love of money is the root of all evil. It poisons our spirits and blinds us to the true word.
Money is the root of all evil. The poor are blessed. Suffering is a sign of true faith. So she carried that belief like a badge of honor. She told herself, I am broke because I am holy. I am struggling because I belong to God. When she saw unbelievers succeeding around her, buying cars, building houses, expanding businesses, instead of asking what they were doing differently, she dismissed them. She said to herself, their money will not last. God will judge them. At least I have peace. But deep down, behind the prayers and the church attendance and the religious language, Tolu had quietly stopped believing that God could make her rich. She had accepted poverty as her portion, and that acceptance was the most dangerous thing she ever did. It was not that Tolu never tried. She did try several times. She started a small food business once.
Here you are, freshly made just for you. Thank you so much.
But she woke up late most mornings, prepared her meals in a rush, and often ran out of supplies because she never planned ahead. Within 3 months, it collapsed. She tried selling clothes.
Feel this one. The embroidery is exquisite and the cotton is so soft.
Oh, wow. It feels amazing.
But she spent the profit before reinvesting it, kept no records, and when a customer complained about a bad product, she argued instead of making it right. That too fell apart. She tried one more time with a hair braiding business.
I love how the braid is turning out.
It really suits you. We are almost done.
But she was inconsistent with her hours, turned away clients when she did not feel like working, and cut corners on the products she used. Gone in 4 months. Every time something failed, Tolu had the same conclusion. You see, God does not want me to prosper. I am a child of God, and this is just my lot in life. She never once stopped to ask the harder question, what did I actually do wrong? One afternoon, after yet another business had failed, Tolu sat outside on a bench near her home. She was not crying. She was past tears. She was just empty. An older woman sat down beside her. Her name was Mrs. Grace. She was in her 60s, well-dressed, calm, and carried the kind of quiet confidence that comes from a life well built. Mrs. Grace looked at Tolu and said, "You look like a woman who has been fighting the wrong battle." Tolu told her everything, the businesses, the failures, the prayers, the belief that God simply did not want believers to be wealthy. Mrs. Grace listened without interrupting, and when Tolu finished, the older woman was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "My dear, God is not the reason you failed, and I can show you exactly why." Mrs. Grace said, "Tell me about your food business. What time did you wake up each morning?" Tolu looked away. She admitted, "Sometimes 8, sometimes 9, depending on how I felt." Mrs. Grace nodded slowly and said, Proverbs 12:24 says the hand of the diligent will rule, but the lazy hand will be put to forced labor.
Proverbs 12:24 says the hand of the diligent will rule, but the lazy hand will be put to forced labor.
Tolu, your first problem was a lack of discipline. Discipline is not a personality trait. It is a decision. It is choosing to show up, not when you feel like it, but because you made a commitment to God, to your customers, and to yourself. You cannot build anything lasting on feelings. Feelings change every morning. Discipline does not. Tolu felt the words land somewhere deep because she knew it was true. She had always done things when she felt like it, and she rarely felt like it. Then Mrs. Grace asked, "The hair braiding business. Tell me about the products you used and how you handled your customers." Tolu was quiet. She said, "I use cheaper products sometimes to save money, and when clients complained, I felt they were being difficult." Mrs. Grace said, Proverbs 11:3 says the integrity of the upright guides them, but the crookedness of the treacherous destroys them. Your second problem was a lack of integrity. Every time you cut corners, you were not just cheating your customer. You were telling God, "I do not trust you to provide for me honestly, so I will take shortcuts." Integrity is not just about being honest with others. It is about being someone that God can trust with more. And when you showed him you could not be trusted with a small business, why would he expand it? Tolu had no words. She had never thought about it that way. She had always seen integrity as a moral issue. She never saw it as a financial one. Mrs. Grace continued, "You mentioned you spent your profits before reinvesting them and kept no records. Is that right?" Tolu nodded, embarrassed. Mrs. Grace said, Proverbs 21:5 says the plans of the diligent lead to profit, but hasty decisions lead to poverty. Mrs. Grace said, Proverbs 21:5 says the plans of the diligent lead to profit, but hasty decisions lead to poverty. Your third problem was a lack of planning. You were praying for increase but spending without a system. You were asking God to bless a business that had no structure. A blessing poured into a leaking container will always run out. Planning is how you tell God you are ready for what you are asking for. It is stewardship, and God does not give more to someone who cannot manage what they already have. Write down your goals, know your numbers, decide in advance where every coin goes. That is not a lack of faith, that is faith with action behind it. Finally, Mrs. Grace said, "You mentioned you turned away clients when you did not feel like working, and that you were inconsistent with your hours." She said, Proverbs 10:4 says, "Lazy hands make for poverty, but diligent hands bring wealth." Your fourth problem was a lack of diligence. Diligence is not the same as working hard once. Diligence is showing up the same way on a bad day as you do on a good day. It is serving your 10th customer with the same energy you gave your first. The unbelievers you watched succeed around you. They were not more gifted than you. They were more consistent than you. They were diligent. And diligence does not care about your feelings or your faith background. It rewards whoever practices it. Tolu felt something break open inside her. A wall she had built over years of excuses and false theology began to crack. Mrs. Grace placed her hand gently on Tolu's and said, "My dear, God never failed you. You were waiting on God to do the part He already gave you to do. The Bible does not promise wealth to those who only pray. It promises fruit to those who both trust God and work His principles, faith and works, together. You blamed God for a harvest that never came, but you never planted the right seeds. You never watered them consistently, and you never protected what was growing." Tolu looked at the older woman and asked, "So what do I do now?" Mrs. Grace smiled and said, "You go back. You start again. But this time, you start with discipline in your daily life, integrity in every transaction, a written plan for every shilling, and the diligence to keep going even when it is slow. Do those 4 things and watch what God does. Maybe you are Tolu. Maybe you have been blaming God for a season that your own habits created. Maybe you have been sitting in church every Sunday, praying every morning, and still wondering why the unbelievers around you are getting ahead. The answer is not that God loves them more. The answer is that they are applying principles that God put in His Word, principles that work for anyone who walks in them. Discipline, integrity, planning, diligence. These are God's financial system, and they are available to you right now. God did not create you to be broke. He created you to be fruitful. But fruitfulness requires your participation. Start today. Go back and try again, this time with the right foundation, because God is not the problem and He never was. If this story spoke to you, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Subscribe for more truth that will challenge you and change you. God bless you.